house in Baltimore, and none of it good right now as we prepare for the minicamp next week. The OTAs have exacted a ridiculous toll on the Ravens, especially toward the end of last week. This guy is new to the Ravens beat, but at the USA Today, but did some work over at SB Nation and the beat down. He is Walla O'Dinnerin, and maybe you perhaps follow him out on Twitter. He is a Walla Wrightmore. That's WOLA. WRITEMORE. We welcome him on for his maiden voyage here at WNST, talk a little Ravens football. Dude, what the hell's going on in the water out in Owings Mills? I mean, first on Thursday we lose a corner, and then the Dennis Pitta thing, I think, took everyone by surprise on Friday afternoon, Walla.
So, yeah, thanks you for having me on, Nestor. I don't know what's going on either. It just feels like over the last couple of years, Black Cat's been running around Baltimore's training facility with injuries. When you look at the 2015 season and the 2016 season, in total, the Ravens have had 38 players on injury reserve. So that's like 19 a season. So they've really been hit hard over the last couple of years.
And we've already been hit hard this year, and the year hadn't even started yet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in running the meter on this whole thing, let's just go backwards through the draft. And obviously the Ravens selected a DB in the first round in Marlon Humphrey. We said, well, that's not where their greatest need is. And I think for people that watched the team play last year and watch what happened in the third and fourth quarters of games and when Jimmy Smith wasn't around, it's pretty obvious. The safety part of this thing in taking another DB was, we got this Tavon Young. He looks great. He's a great rookie player. Came in, exceeded expectations last year, and now you lose him on Thursday. And I don't know that nickel position is going to be easy for them to replace.
Yeah, it isn't. And right now, he was a big loss for them because he was penciled in as their nickel corner to begin the season. But I will say that compared to previous seasons, the Ravens have actually did a good job in terms of depth. I believe with Lardarius Webb and Marlon Humphrey, both of those guys are going to get more playing time with the loss of Young. So they might slide Humphrey in there, but my guess would they might go with the veteran, experienced person with Webb since he's had some familiar places, like he's played in the slot before. But generally speaking, I feel it's a big loss, but I think that the Ravens can manage this time around.
Well, and in the case of Pitta, we had talked a little bit about O.J. Howard on draft day, and, of course, you can't take all the guys from Alabama, even when you're Ozzie Newsome, but the notion that maybe he was going to be a difference-making tight end, and, of course, he went to the Buccaneers 3 picks later, but in the case of Pitta, 86 catches last year, none of them for long yardage. He was a little bit of a safety valve in an offense that I don't want to call it dysfunctional. It just wasn't very good last year. But the notion that Dennis Pitta's not going to be here now, and I think just when we got comfortable, just when he got comfortable with the hip and we started to believe, well, maybe he's past all of this, that was an ugly Friday all the way around. I think for anybody that knows Dennis Pitta, and of course we did a radio show with him here for a number of years, and I just have incredible affection for him, his wife, his family, and the kind of guy he is. And I think everybody in the organization, he'd taken a pay cut. He had just done a media day and had a little bit of sense of humor about Brandon Williams, and now we're finding out that this is, the third devastating injury to that joint. You'd like to believe that you just want him to be able to walk when he's 50 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly. And his health is the most important thing outside of football. Football is not important right now. And just prayers out to his family and his loved ones for what he's going through right now, because it was definitely unfortunate. Because last week he was just joking around that he hasn't gotten a lot of questions about the hip, and unfortunately the life of football has some cruel moments there. So I think it's really devastating from the starting standpoint, from an on the field and off the field standpoint, and but unfortunately, with his possible departure, the Ravens are going to have to move on, likely. So I think. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Walla O'Dinnerin, I'm say it for me, Walla. Say it.
Walla O'Denorin.
O'Denorin. I just want to make sure I get it right. I mean, like O'Denorin. Okay, I'm working on this because I'm enjoying having you on. He's at the USA Today. You can follow him out at Walla Wrightmore. That's WOLAWRITEMORE. We're going to talk about these injuries, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of a long tail with the tight end position, with the nickel position, obviously with what's going on next week with the mini camps. We're going to be discussing all of this. But there was plenty of question about this team before these injuries last week. I think the whole offseason is going to be a lot of questions, specifically about the offense, and especially because they didn't draft offensive players last month. But you were one of the very few people that stepped out, and you are a believer in what the Ravens are doing right now.
Absolutely, I am. And when you look, and the thing that I love about what Baltimore did that people aren't too popular about is that even though they didn't get a wide receiver, I love the way they invested in their defense. Because when you look at the AFC in general, the New England Patriots are still the cream of the crop. And when I look at the AFC, I don't see a whole lot of quarterbacks. I actually don't see any quarterback, honestly, who has a 50-50 shot of winning a shootout with Tom Brady. Derek Carr is interesting. He hasn't gone up against Brady yet, but that's something that remains to be seen.
Well, he's coming back from the same kind of injury that Flacco did, Brady did, at one point Roethlisberger did, at one point Carson Palmer. I mean, I don't expect, Derek Carr to be the same guy he was on October 20th last year before the injury.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment to make, too. And when I look at the Baltimore Ravens from a philosophy standpoint, the reason why I'm so high on them is because when you look at the AFC again, not a lot of teams play that kind of physicality that the Ravens are looking to build from the offensive line standpoint. When you're looking at Ronnie Stanley, Alex Lewis, John Urschel, Ryan Jansen, Marshall Yanda, and Jermaine Illuminor, and Nico Saragusa. When you're looking at all those guys, they're at least 300. They're around 320 pounds or bigger. So when you're looking at it from that standpoint, and when you look at the Baltimore Ravens defense, what they've done in their secondary, adding Brandon Carr, Tony Jefferson, and Marlon Humphrey, the way you beat the Patriots, at least since when they went 18-0 in 2007, over the last 10 seasons, when you beat them, is with their you beat them with your defense. Not a lot of teams have beaten them in the playoffs with an offense. So, to me, from that standpoint, that's the way you get them. Because I think that's the way the Baltimore Ravens have always beaten them from in the AFC Championship game in 2012 when they won 28-13.
It's also how they lost to them in the secondary 3 years ago when they couldn't stop anyone. And look, this has been going on for 3 years. So I mean, for them to draft defense and draft in the secondary, maybe that's not sexy to people. Maybe they want a running back or a wide receiver. And we drafted one of those 2 years ago who we're counting on in Perryman. But I'm with you on the defensive side that was the calling card for this franchise during all of its glory period was defense. So I have no problem in the direction they went in, but then the question is, well, what are they going to do on offense? Who's going to carry the ball? Who's going to catch the ball? Who's going to block for Flacco? Where are they going to be? And I think that there's still, major question marks about what's going on in this offense right now.
It is true. You're absolutely right. There are questions. And I think, to me personally, the most underrated move, maybe not only on the Ravens, but in the entire offseason of the NFL, was the addition of Greg Roman. This guy, over the last 5 seasons, no matter where he goes, people just know how to run the football when he's in charge. Well, from when he was with the San Francisco 49ers to his recent time with the Buffalo Bills, in each of the last 5 seasons, the teams he's coached for on the offensive line, they have finished in the top 5 in rushing yards a game. So I think that's going to be a big asset with Baltimore. I think they're going to be more committed in the running game. I think they're going to take some pressure off of Flacco because they obviously know that they have an influx, especially with the loss of Pitta for at least the time being. With him out, the Ravens are going to have to lean even more on the running game. So I think from Kenneth Dixon, Terrence West, Lorenzo Taliaferro, Danny Woodhead, those guys, I think they're going to get a lot of touches this year, and I'm excited for it.
Walla O'Denorin joins us here from USA Today. He's there doing some Raven stuff on their Raven Wire. You can find him out on Twitter as well at Walla Wrightmore. That's WOLAWRITEMORE. And, we talk about the sky is falling for the fan base in the days after the draft and what are we going to do on offense and where are the players going to come from. And lo and behold, June steps up, and on Friday when we're losing Dennis Pitta, the Kansas City Chiefs are inviting Jeremy Maclin out onto the marketplace again after giving him a ton of money 2 years ago. And there's a lot of conjecture about these 5-year deals or 4-year deals really being 2-year deals, mostly in the NFL now with the bonus and the way the system works at this point. But there are going to be more. I mean, he will not be the only wide receiver out there. There'll be tight ends. There'll be running backs. All of that will happen between now and the first week of September. But the Jeremy Maclin, the minute he hits the marketplace, the fan base buzzes, are we going to go get him? I think the Ravens really believe in Brashad Perryman right now. And I've said on several occasions, I think Ozzie Newsome and John Harbaugh are in many ways betting their jobs, betting their careers, betting their reputations because they are seeing it through with him and believe he's going to go out and get 70 or 80 balls this year.
Yeah, I do believe along those lines as well, because the way Harbaugh was talking, like during the scouting combine, he put a lot of emphasis on Brashad Perryman. He said we're going to need him to step up big this year. We're going to need him. There's no question about it. He knows the pressure. He knows what kind of pressure he has in front of him, and Brashad Perryman certainly pushes more pressure on himself more than anybody else. So I'm definitely confident. He looks good in OTAs. I'm definitely confident in his ability to step up, make the next step entering the 2017 season.
Well, you are a guy that thinks the Ravens are a Super Bowl contender this year, so you must really have a high level of confidence in Joe Flacco bouncing back this year. We've talked about the injuries and what's going to happen to Derek Carr and to other quarterbacks. This would be the bounce-back year for him. I think he needs a lot of things to go right, but the one thing he needs to go right is himself, and I think he'd be the first guy to admit that. He's a stand-up and his character of guys I've ever met in 25 years of doing this. He would be the first to tell you he didn't play well enough last year.
Absolutely, and when he finished the season with 20 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, and that's not something that you want to see from your franchise quarterback. But to fair to him, it's just been a frustrating situation for him from an offensive standpoint, with the firing of Mark Trestman after Week 5 and going through a transition change with Marty Morningweg in the middle of the season. It's really hard in the middle of the season to switch offensive coordinators with the different philosophies or what have you. So I think from that standpoint, it wasn't easy for him, but at the same time, you expect more from your veteran. I think he is going to bounce back in 2017. I think he's going to build more camaraderie with Morningweg with a second season under his belt working with him. And from there, I just think that when you're looking at the emphasis on the offensive line, I think the Ravens are going to rely more on the running game. It's more than they did last season when they ranked 28th in rushing yards per game. I think that number is going to improve dramatically.
But when you say rely on it, I mean it's going to have to work. They're going to live or die with it. I mean, and part of that was last year being in 3rd and 12 and being in 3rd and 14 and having problems running the ball on first down and then setting up bad D&D the rest of the day.
Yeah, and also there were also a lot of frustrating times last season when maybe there was a 3rd and 10, for example, and there was a 5-yard pass to Steve Smith Sr., and it would be 4th and 5. I think we're going to see a more aggressive offense this year in those type of situations. I think they're going to be more aggressive with Perriman, with the deep threats that they have between Perriman, Mike Wallace, and Chris Moore, and possibly Michael Campanaro, and when he gets healthy. So I think I don't try to be too biased, but I feel like from a philosophy standpoint, the Ravens know what's ahead of them. They know their personnel. They know they're going to rely heavily more on the running game to take pressure off of Flacco. They have to do it, as you said. So from there, I think we're going to see a more improved Crockett Gilmore. With the loss of Pitta, it's a devastating loss, but at the same time, it's also why you drafted Crockett Gilmore in the 3rd round of the 2014 NFL Draft. You drafted Max Williams in the 2nd round of the 2015 NFL Draft. So when you have those guys, not to mention Ben Watson, Darren Waller, and Nick Boyle, they have a lot of weapons still at the tight end position. I think they're going to see the opportunity to step up and play for Pitta.
I would say that Pitta was their preferred option, though. I mean, based on what we saw last year. All due respect to Ben Watson, who's coming back at an advanced age himself. Nick Boyle, who hasn't established himself. And Crockett Gilmore's had a hard time staying healthy.
Yeah, that is true. And the tight end position, kind of like the secondary, the cornerback position over the last couple of years, has been a real mash unit. So I think it's good. It's luckily for Harbaugh said earlier this week or last week that Williams will be ready for a training camp. So that's a good sign. And they're really good. The tight end position really going to be an X factor for this team. It's going to be an X factor on my prediction at least. But from if I were to make two additional predictions on why the Ravens would win the Super Bowl, is because they need to stay healthy, number one, and number two, they need to get better on the road. And despite all the issues the Ravens have had last season with the inconsistencies in the passing game, the secondary, and the running game, they still finished 6-2 at home. But when they went on the road, they went 2-6, and they only beat the Browns and the Jaguars, and they almost lost those games. So
well, part of that was wide receiver beating secondary, and part of that was Odell Beckham. Part of that was down in Dallas, and part of that was in Pittsburgh, and obviously Tom Brady. I mean, it really Flacco did things to win games last year that he never got any credit for doing because the defense broke down in the end and gave the game away. So, Flacco would have smelled a lot better as a game manager, even in a relatively pedestrian offense, had the defense held its water in the fourth quarter in a lot of those games on the road.
Exactly, and you know what's so interesting is that the people are so down on the Ravens when we could be having a different story on Christmas Day. If Baltimore's defense held Antonio Brown out of the end zone for 9 more seconds, the Ravens would have sole possession of first place in the AFC North, and they would be looking into Week 17 against the Bengals with a win to clinch the division title. And the Pittsburgh Steelers might not have even been in the playoffs at that point.
Would have changed my Christmas eggnog, Walla. I'll tell you that.
Exactly.
Wallo Dinnerin covers all things Ravens for the USA Today. You can find him out at Walla Write More on Twitter, as well as out on the Ravens Wire at usatoday.com. Last thing for you on the race, and you have picked the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl. If you like that, by the way, you can go to Vegas and make a lot of money on that, Walla. But I think up in Pittsburgh they have a different opinion. But for Cincinnati, I really feel like they've gone backward. I don't feel like the Ravens have gone backward. I think the Ravens are an 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 kind of team until I see differently. But I look at the Bengals and say, I don't think they're an 8-win team. I don't think they're a good team. And certainly the Browns, we can laugh at them and discuss whether they're going to win 2 games or 3 games or 4 games, whatever it's going to be. But I still think Pittsburgh's really formidable here. And until the Ravens can sort of exercise that thing in the modern era, Pittsburgh's perceived to be the better team almost universally right now, Walla.
I think they're definitely up there. I think the Ravens and the Steelers are neck and neck. They're almost like polar opposites compared to what they used to be. They always used to be together a physical team, from a running game standpoint, and a dominant defense on both sides. But for now, the Ravens look to have the better defense, and the Steelers look to have the better offense. I think both the Ravens defense and the Steelers offense have distanced themselves from the Ravens offense and the Steelers defense. So the Steelers are definitely going to be a team that the Ravens are going to have to deal with every year, like they always do. From the Bengals standpoint, I do agree with you that they've looked like they've taken a step back, especially along the offensive line. With the loss of Jason Whitworth, that guy, every single time I'm so happy he's out of the AFC North, because every single time Terrell Suggs went against him, it just looks so like he made Suggs invisible sometimes. And but with him gone, Suggs is going to be feasting. And Week 1, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're all looking to see what Terrell Suggs still has under the hood at this point, advanced in his career. We're going to send everybody out to find you at USA Today on the Ravens Wire. He is Wallo Dinnerin. Easy to say, hard to write, I think, at this point, but he writes it for you. It's Walla Write More, WOLAWRITEMORE. Great having you on for the first time, pal. We'll stay in touch, okay?
Thank you, Nestor. I appreciate it.
You got it. Wallo Dinnerin joining us here from USA Today. You can find me all week long out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape. And it's now summertime, bikini season. Make sure you're visiting our friends over at Planet Fitness. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is going to be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST, all brought to you by Coons Ford. I am on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our WNSTV YouTube channel. And I'm a very available individual at nasty at WNST.net as well. You can email me anytime. We got our road trips going, and we got the summer brewing, and the Orioles percolating now. And we're very, very readily available out on the internet at WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST.net, where we never stop talking Baltimore sports.